My name is Sarah Williams. I'm 29, a software developer working remotely from Austin, Texas, and I thought sharing my Netflix password with my roommate was just being nice. I had no idea I was about to fund her entire digital empire. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. 6 months ago, I was scrolling through Roomie Match, desperately searching for someone to split the rent on my 2-bedroom apartment near the University of Texas campus. Moving from California to Austin was supposed to cut my living costs in half, but even Texas rent was eating into my savings. That's when Jessica Martinez's profile popped up like a gift from the roommate gods. Her photos showed a bubbly 23-year-old with perfectly styled hair and a smile that could sell ice to penguins. Social media enthusiast and aspiring influencer, her bio read. Clean, responsible, and drama-free. She had stellar reviews from previous roommates talking about her charm and helpfulness. After years of living alone, coding in silence, I thought having an extroverted roommate might actually be good for me. Our first meeting was at a trendy coffee shop downtown. Jessica arrived 15 minutes late, clutching a designer purse that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget, but she apologized so sweetly I couldn't stay annoyed. "Sarah, oh my God, you're even prettier than your photos," she gushed, pulling me into an unexpected hug. "I am so sorry I'm late. My Uber driver literally got lost 3 times. These Austin streets are insane, right?" I found myself smiling despite the wait. There was something magnetic about Jessica's energy, the way she made everything sound like an adventure. When I showed her photos of the apartment, she practically squealed. "This is perfect! And you work from home? That's amazing. I'm always out networking and building my brand, so you'll have plenty of quiet time for your computer stuff." Her computer stuff. I should have caught that dismissive tone, but I was too relieved to finally find someone who seemed normal. The move-in went smoothly. Jessica arrived with surprisingly few belongings for someone with such an expensive-looking lifestyle, mostly clothes and makeup. When I asked about furniture, she laughed it off. "I'm more of a minimalist these days. Besides, your setup is so cute and cozy. I don't want to clutter it up with my stuff." Within a week, we'd fallen into an easy routine. I'd work from the living room during the day, and Jessica would float in and out, always heading to some meeting or event. She was constantly on her phone, typing away with perfectly manicured nails. "Building the brown never stops," she'd explain with a wink whenever I glanced up from my laptop. One evening, as I was setting up my streaming accounts on the living room TV, Jessica wandered over with a bowl of the expensive Greek yogurt she somehow always had in our fridge despite claiming to be broke. "Oh, you have Netflix and Hulu, HBO Max, Disney Plus, Amazon Prime. Wow, you're like the streaming queen," she said, plopping down beside me on the couch. I had to cancel all mine when my parents cut me off last semester. Financial responsibility and all that. Her face did this thing. A perfect little pout that made her look like a kicked puppy. Without thinking, I grabbed the remote. "Want me to add your profile? I mean, we're roommates. Might as well share, right?" The change in her expression was instant. That puppy dog look vanished, replaced with something that flickered too fast for me to catch. But then she was beaming again. "Sarah, you are literally the sweetest person ever. Are you sure? I don't want to be a burden." "It's no big deal. I barely use half of these anyway." So I added her to everything. Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max, Disney Plus, Amazon Prime, even my gaming subscriptions for Xbox Game Pass and PlayStation Plus. Jessica watched me input her information with the kind of focused attention I usually reserve for debugging code. "You're amazing," she said, squeezing my arm. "I owe you big time." Over the next few weeks, I started noticing little things. Jessica's mysterious financial situation, for one. She claimed to be broke, living off savings and occasional brand partnership payments. But she was always carrying coffee from expensive places, wearing new clothes, getting her nails done. When I asked about it, she'd brush it off. Oh, this old thing, she'd say about a sweater that still had tags. I got it at this incredible sample sale. You know how good I am at finding deals. Her phone was constantly buzzing with notifications, and she'd step away to take calls in hushed, excited tones. I'd catch fragments of conversation. Yeah, I can get you access to that. No problem, just Venmo me first. Trust me, this is way better than paying full price. I assumed she was talking about her influencer work, maybe getting friends deals on products or something. Jessica had a way of making everything sound legitimate, even when it felt slightly off. The first red flag I actually paid attention to came during our third week living together. I was debugging a particularly stubborn piece of code when Jessica burst through the front door, practically vibrating with excitement. Sarah, you will not believe the day I've had. I just landed 3 new clients for my digital consulting business. Digital consulting? I looked up from my laptop. I thought you were focusing on social media. Her smile faltered for just a second. Well, yeah, but I'm expanding. Helping people optimize their digital lives, find the best platforms, that kind of thing. She disappeared into her room before I could ask more questions, but I heard her on the phone minutes later. Okay, so for the premium package, you get access to everything. Netflix, HBO, Hulu, the works. It's normally like $60 a month if you paid separately, but I can hook you up for just $30. Something cold settled in my stomach. I told myself I was being paranoid, that there had to be a reasonable explanation. Jessica was social and connected. Maybe she'd negotiated some kind of group discount. But late that night, lying in bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The expensive lifestyle, the vague explanations, the phone calls about premium packages, and underneath it all, the way Jessica had looked at my streaming accounts that first night. The focused intensity, like she was memorizing every detail. I pulled out my phone and checked my Netflix account, scrolling through the recent activity. Along with my usual viewing history, there were shows I'd never watched, accessed from devices I didn't recognize. Multiple devices, in fact, way more than just Jessica's laptop and phone. My heart started racing. I switched to Hulu, then HBO Max, then Amazon Prime. The story was the same. Everywhere. Multiple devices, multiple locations, automatic upgrades to accommodate the volume of streaming. My Disney Plus account was somehow linked to 43 different profiles. 43! I sat at my kitchen table, surrounded by printed billing statements and scribbled notes, doing the math. Jessica wasn't just using my accounts, she was running what looked like a full-scale operation out of our apartment. My laptop chimed with a calendar reminder. I had a stand-up meeting with my development team in 10 minutes. For a moment, I considered calling in sick. How was I supposed to focus on sprint planning when my roommate was apparently running a digital black market out of our apartment? But hiding wouldn't solve anything. I needed to talk to Jessica. She waltzed in around 3 p.m., arms full of shopping bags from stores I couldn't afford to window shop at. Her nails were freshly done in a complicated design that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget. "Hey, Rumi," she breezed past me toward her room. "How was your day? I had the most amazing networking lunch. Met this girl who runs the cutest boutique downtown." "Jessica, can we talk for a minute?" She paused, something flickering across her face, too fast to read. "Sure, what's up?" I gestured to the kitchen table, where I'd spread out the billing statements. Her eyes immediately went to the papers, and I caught a micro-expression, tight, calculating, before she arranged her features back into casual concern. "So, I got my monthly bills today, and there's been some kind of mistake with my streaming accounts. They're saying I have dozens of devices connected, and the charges have gone up by like $200. Jessica set down her shopping bags and moved closer, peering at the statements with what looked like genuine confusion. "Oh, wow, that's weird. Maybe your accounts got hacked?" That's what I thought at first, but customer service said all the devices are streaming from Austin IP addresses, different locations around the city. I might have mentioned to a few friends that we had good streaming access. Maybe I gave a couple people your login info, but just like close friends who couldn't afford their own accounts right now. The casual way she said it made my chest tighten. A couple people? Jessica, there are over 40 profiles on my Disney Plus account. She laughed, but it sounded forced. Okay, maybe more than a couple, but Sarah, you have to understand, these are college students, people struggling financially. I was just trying to help them out. It's not like it cost you any extra money, right? Except it does cost extra money. I pointed to the Netflix statement. When too many people stream at once, the accounts automatically upgrade to higher tiers. I'm paying for premium everything now. Jessica's expression shifted, her eyes narrowing slightly. Sarah, you're being really dramatic about this. We're talking about streaming services, not life savings. You make good money as a developer, right? Can't you just see this as like helping people out, being generous? The word dramatic hit me like a slap. I'd heard it before from ex-boyfriends who didn't want to deal with my legitimate concerns, from family members who thought I was overreacting to things that mattered to me. I'm not being dramatic, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I'm concerned about unauthorized charges in my accounts. Unauthorized? Jessica's voice pitched higher. Sarah, I'm your roommate. You literally gave me the passwords, and I told you I shared them with a few friends. This isn't some criminal conspiracy, it's just people watching Netflix. I felt that familiar doubt creeping in, the same feeling I'd had in past relationships when I'd questioned my own perceptions. Was I overreacting? Jessica had a point. I had given her the passwords willingly, and it was just streaming services. But then I looked at the numbers again. $200. That was real money, money I worked for. Look, Jessica continued, her tone softening into something that sounded almost motherly. I get that you're upset about the money, but maybe instead of focusing on who's watching what, we could talk about how to handle the bills. I could chip in something each month if it makes you feel better. How much could you chip in? I asked. She shrugged. Maybe $25? I'm pretty tight on cash right now, but I want to be fair. $25 toward a $200 increase. I stared at her, looking for any sign that she understood how insulting that offer was. I need to think about this, I said, finally. Jessica's smile was bright and understanding. Of course, take all the time you need. And hey, maybe we could set up some kind of password protection thing. Make sure only the people we trust have access. After she disappeared into her room, I sat alone with the bills. That familiar knot of anxiety tightened my chest. Part of me wanted to believe Jessica's explanation, to accept her $25 contribution and move on. It would be easier than confronting the growing suspicion that something was deeply wrong here. But I couldn't stop thinking about those phone calls I'd overheard, the ones about premium packages and client consultations, the expensive shopping bags and fresh manicures, the way she'd looked at my accounts that first night, memorizing details. I picked up my phone and opened a group chat with a few friends from my previous job in California. Maybe I was overthinking this. Maybe I needed perspective from people who knew me, who could tell me if I was being reasonable or paranoid. But before I could type anything, my phone buzzed with a notification from Instagram. Jessica had posted a story showing off her new purchases, tagged at some upscale boutique downtown. The caption read, "Treating myself after a successful day of helping friends with their digital needs. So grateful for the opportunities to make people's lives easier. Hashtag digital consultant, hashtag helping friends, hashtag blessed." Digital consultant, helping friends with their digital needs. I screenshotted the story, my hands trembling slightly. Then I opened my laptop and started researching exactly how many people could stream simultaneously on different service tiers, what the upgrade triggers were, and what kind of money someone could make reselling streaming access. The numbers I found made my stomach turn. If Jessica was charging even half of what the legitimate services cost, and she had as many clients as my account activity suggested, she could be making thousands of dollars a month off my credit cards using my name and financial information. This wasn't generous roommate sharing. This was a business, and I was funding it without even knowing I was a partner. I needed help figuring out exactly what Jessica was doing and how to stop it. But I couldn't do this alone. I needed someone who understood the technical side, who could help me dig deeper into what was really going on. I scrolled through my contacts until I found Tyler Rodriguez, a cybersecurity specialist I'd met at a local tech meetup a couple months back. We'd connected over shared frustrations with unethical tech practices, and he seemed like the kind of person who'd understand why this mattered. My finger hovered over his number. Was I really going to involve someone else in my roommate drama? But as I looked at Jessica's Instagram story again, at the evidence spread across my kitchen table, I realized this had gone way beyond normal roommate issues. This was theft, and I needed help proving it. I stared at Tyler's contact information for a full 5 minutes before finally hitting the call button. We'd only met twice at Austin Tech meetup events, but something about his ethical stance on digital privacy had stuck with me. During a particularly heated discussion about data harvesting, he'd said something that resonated. The moment you stop questioning unusual patterns in digital behavior is the moment you become complicit in whatever's really going on. Sarah, hey, this is unexpected. How are you doing? I have my keyboard clicking in the background because I'm doing some work right now. Hi, Tyler. I hope I'm not interrupting your work. I have a kind of weird situation and could use someone with your expertise to help me understand what's happening. The typing stopped. I'm intrigued. What's going on? I gave him the abbreviated version, my roommate sharing my streaming accounts, the unexpected charges, the defensive behavior when questioned. As I talked, I realized how naive I sounded, how gullible. Sarah, stop right there. Tyler's voice had shifted into what I imagined was his professional security consultant mode. You're not stupid for trusting someone, but what you're describing sounds like organized resale fraud. Can you get somewhere private where we can look at this together? 20 minutes later, Tyler was sitting at my kitchen table, laptop open, looking like a detective who had just discovered a major case. He was younger than I remembered, maybe mid-20s, with dark hair that looked like he ran his hands through it when he was concentrating, which he was doing a lot of right now. Okay, let's start with network analysis, he said, fingers flying over his keyboard. I'm going to walk you through checking your account access logs, and then we'll cross-reference with some tools I use for forensic analysis. He guided me through logging into each streaming service's account management page, showing me how to interpret the device lists and IP addresses. What I found made my chest tight with anger. Netflix, 23 active devices from 18 different IP addresses across Austin. Hulu, 31 devices, 22 locations. HBO Max, 19 devices, 15 locations. Disney Plus, 47 devices, 31 locations. Jesus, Tyler whispered, leaning back in his chair. Sarah, this isn't sharing with friends. This is a full-scale operation. He pulled up a mapping tool and started plotting the IP addresses. Red dots appeared all over Austin, concentrated around the university area and several apartment complexes. Look at this pattern, he said, pointing to the clusters. These aren't random. They're systematically distributed across student housing areas. Your roommate isn't just helping a few broke friends, she's running a business.
Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. I felt vindicated and terrified at the same time. But how would she even find this many customers? Social media, probably. College students are always looking for ways to save money, and streaming services are expensive when you're living on ramen and student loans. Tyler started pulling up network analysis tools I'd never seen before. Let me run some deeper scans. If she's as organized as this looks, there might be more to find. While his software worked, Tyler explained what we were looking at. The thing is, what she's doing isn't just
ethically questionable. It's probably violating the terms of service for every platform. And depending on how she's marketing it, could be considered commercial fraud. Commercial fraud? If she's charging people for access to accounts she doesn't own, that's essentially selling stolen services. The fact that she's using your financial information without consent makes it even more serious. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. Hey, bringing some friends over to study tonight. Hope that's cool. Books. Shiny. Tyler glanced at the message. How often does she bring people over? Maybe twice a week? Usually different people. I always assumed they were study groups or networking things. Or customer meetings. Tyler said grimly. He turned his laptop toward me. Sarah, look at this. He'd pulled up what looked like a timeline with spikes of activity correlated to dates and IP addresses. Every time Jessica brings people over, there's a spike in new device registrations on your accounts. She's literally conducting sales meetings in your living room. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. All those times I'd offered to make coffee for her study groups, thinking I was being a good hostess. Jessica had been selling access to my accounts while I served snacks to her customers. There's more, Tyler said, his voice gentle but serious. I ran some network traces, and I'm seeing patterns that suggest she might be using more than just your streaming accounts. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? Some of the traffic patterns suggest access to software subscriptions, gaming platforms, maybe even productivity tools. If she has any of your other login information, I thought about my password manager, my Adobe Creative Suite subscription, my Microsoft Office account. Had I logged into any of those on the shared computer? Had Jessica watched me type passwords? We need to check everything, I said, suddenly feeling very cold. Every account, every subscription. For the next 2 hours, Tyler and I went through my digital life with forensic precision. Adobe Creative Suite, 12 unauthorized users. Microsoft Office, 8 active licenses beyond my plan. Even my Spotify account had been upgraded to accommodate dozens of simultaneous streams. The total monthly charges from unauthorized usage are, Tyler calculated quietly, approximately $430. $430 every month? For who knew how long? Tyler, I need to know how much money she's making from this. He looked up from his laptop. Sarah, are you sure you want to know? Because once we start digging into the financial side, this becomes a much more serious situation. I thought about Jessica's shopping bags, her fresh manicures, her cavalier attitude about money while claiming to be broke. I thought about her Instagram stories celebrating successful days of helping friends with their digital needs. I want to know everything. Tyler nodded and opened what looked like a spreadsheet application. Okay, let's do some conservative math. If she's charging even half of what these services cost legitimately, and based on the number of active devices, he worked quietly for several minutes, cross-referencing pricing tiers and usage patterns. Sarah, he said finally, his voice very quiet, if she's been running this for even 3 months, she's probably made somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000 off your accounts. $20,000? The room felt like it was spinning. She offered to chip in $25 a month, I said, my voice sounding strange and distant. Tyler's expression darkened. That's not chipping in. That's insulting your intelligence. I sat there, processing the scope of Jessica's deception. This wasn't casual sharing or even inconsiderate behavior. This was systematic theft, sophisticated enough to generate serious income, orchestrated by someone who'd looked me in the eye and called me dramatic for questioning extra charges. What do I do? I asked. Tyler closed his laptop and looked at me directly. Sarah, first, you document everything we found. Screenshot all the account activity, save the network logs, preserve the financial records. Then you confront her with evidence and demand she shut it down immediately. And if she doesn't, then you file a complaint with the streaming services, report the fraud to your credit card companies, and consider involving law enforcement. Sarah, what she's doing is theft of services at minimum, possibly wire fraud depending on how she's processing payments. I felt a surge of gratitude toward this person who was taking my problem seriously, who wasn't telling me I was overreacting or being dramatic. Tyler, I can't thank you enough for helping me understand all this. I don't know what I would have done on my own. He smiled and, for the first time since arriving, looked less like a security consultant and more like the friendly person I'd met at those networking events. Armed with Tyler's evidence and a printed folder of screenshots, I waited for Jessica to come home. My hands were steady now, my mind clear. The numbers didn't lie. She'd stolen thousands of dollars from me while playing the victim. She walked in at 9 p.m., designer coffee in hand, humming something upbeat. "Hey, Rumi, how was your day?" I gestured to the kitchen table where I'd laid out everything: account logs, billing statements, Tyler's network analysis charts. "Jessica, we need to talk. Now." Her smile faltered when she saw the papers. "What's all this?" "This is documentation of your streaming resale business, the one you've been running off my accounts for months." The mask slipped completely. No more innocent confusion, no more sweet roommate act. Jessica's eyes went cold and calculating. "I don't know what you think you found, but 23 devices on Netflix, 47 on Disney Plus, network traces showing customer meetings in our living room." I stood up, feeling taller than I had in weeks. "I know exactly what you've been doing." Jessica crossed her arms. "Prove it." I slid Tyler's analysis across the table. IP mapping shows systematic distribution across student housing. Financial analysis suggests you've made at least $15,000 off my credit cards. For a moment, she just stared at the papers. Then she left. Not her usual bubbly giggle, but something sharp and mean. "So what? You're going to call the cops over Netflix passwords?" "I'm going to give you one chance to shut this down voluntarily. Cancel every unauthorized account, refund your customers, and pay me back for the extra charges." "Or what?" "Or I file fraud reports with every platform, dispute the charges with my credit card companies, and let them investigate your little business." Jessica's face went pale. We both knew that kind of investigation would destroy more than just her streaming operation. "Fine. I'll figure something out." But I wasn't done. Jessica had embarrassed me, stolen from me, and made me doubt my own judgment. She deserved a lesson in consequences. The next morning, I started phase 1 of my plan. While Jessica was out on another networking event, I changed every single password on every account. Then I logged into her social media profiles, which she'd carelessly left open on our shared computer. Her Instagram DMs were a goldmine. Dozens of conversations with customers discussing premium streaming packages and payment schedules. I screenshotted everything. Then, I crafted the perfect post for her story. "Hey everyone, just wanted to let you know I'm shutting down my digital consulting business effective immediately. Turns out what I was doing wasn't as legal as I thought. Anyone who paid for streaming access, please request refunds ASAP. Sorry for any inconvenience." I set it to post in 2 hours and left for a coffee shop to work. My phone exploded with notifications. Jessica called 6 times, texted frantically, "Sarah, what did you do? Delete that post right now." I texted back, "Sorry, I don't know your new passwords. Maybe we should talk when you get home." Jessica burst through the door that evening like a hurricane, her perfect composure completely shattered. "You vindicated bitch! Do you have any idea what you've done?" I looked up calmly from my laptop. "I've helped you with transparency. Isn't that what good roommates do?" "My customers are demanding refunds I don't have. My reputation is ruined. I had to delete my entire Instagram." "Sounds like the natural consequences of running a fraud business." She grabbed her purse, hand shaking. "I'm moving out. Tonight." "That's probably best. And, oh, Jessica," I held up an envelope. "This is an invoice for $430 in unauthorized charges, plus a breakdown of the estimated $15,000 you made. I'll accept a payment plan." She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "You can't be serious." "Dead serious. I've already filed reports with Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max, Disney Plus, and Adobe. They're very interested in systematic resale fraud. Amazing how cooperative they become when you provide network logs and customer communications." Jessica's face cycled through emotions: rage, fear,
disbelief, and finally defeated acceptance. Uh, I'll... I'll figure out the money, she said quietly. I know you will. You're very entrepreneurial. 3 weeks later, Jessica had moved out and
But she's been making payments, I said, feeling oddly protective despite everything. Doesn't matter. Restitution doesn't erase criminal activity. Detective Santos leaned forward. Here's what I need from you, Sarah. We're going to set up a controlled contact. Get her to admit what she did on record. Tyler had helped me prepare for this moment. We'd practiced the conversation, planned exactly what to say to get Jessica to incriminate herself without seeming suspicious. I called her on speakerphone with Detective Santos and Tyler listening in. Jessica, it's Sarah. We need to talk about the payments. What about them? Her voice was guarded, but not panicked. I found more charges. A lot more. Azure, Creative Cloud, business subscriptions I never signed up for. This is bigger than we thought. There was a long pause. Then, Sarah, I can explain. You used my credit cards to create new accounts while lying to my face about helping friends? Look, it got out of hand, okay? It started small, but then I had all these customers, and I needed to scale up. I was gonna pay you back for everything once the business really took off. Detective Santos was nodding, making notes. This was exactly what we needed. So, you admit you used my financial information without permission to create business accounts? It wasn't supposed to hurt you. I was managing everything, making sure the bills got paid. With my money, Jessica. You were paying my bills with my own money while stealing thousands more. Fine, yes, I used your cards, but I was building something real, something that could have made us both money if you hadn't sabotaged it. Detective Santos signaled me to wrap up. We had enough. Jessica's arrest made the local news. UT student charged in digital identity theft scheme ran on 3 Austin stations, complete with her mugshot and details about the sophisticated streaming service fraud operation. I felt a mix of satisfaction and sadness watching her perp walk. This wasn't how I'd imagined our roommate relationship ending when I first met her at that coffee shop. The legal process moved quickly. Faced with overwhelming digital evidence and her recorded confession, Jessica's lawyer advised her to plead guilty. She received 2 years probation, 200 hours of community service, and was ordered to pay full restitution, not just the $2,000 in unauthorized charges, but penalties and court costs, bringing the total to nearly $5,000. Tyler and I celebrated at the same coffee shop where I had first met Jessica. It felt appropriately circular. You know what the best part is, he said, raising his beer? She actually thought she was smarter than everyone else. The entitlement was staggering. I keep thinking about that first night when I added her to my accounts, the way she watched me so carefully. She was planning this from day one. Probably. But Sarah, you handled this perfectly. You trusted your instincts, gathered evidence, and didn't let her gaslight you into thinking you were overreacting. 6 months later, I got a new roommate through a much more thorough screening process. Maya was a graduate student in cybersecurity who appreciated my paranoia about account sharing. Trust but verify, she said when I explained my elaborate password protocols. Smart policy. The knock on my door came on a rainy Thursday evening in November, exactly 13 months after Jessica had moved out. I was debugging a particularly stubborn piece of code, rain drumming against my windows, when I heard the tentative tapping that was so different from my current roommate Maya's confident knock. Through the peephole, I saw a figure hunched under a black umbrella, but something about the posture made my chest tighten with recognition. Sarah, it's Jessica. I know this is weird, but could we talk, please? I stood frozen for a moment, hand on the deadbolt I'd installed after her arrest. Part of me wanted to pretend I wasn't home, to let her stand there in the rain until she gave up and left, but a bigger part was curious about what could possibly bring her back here. I opened the door, but left the chain latch engaged. Jessica looked different. Her hair was shorter, unstyled, pulled back in a simple ponytail. No designer clothes, no perfect makeup, just jeans and a rain jacket that had seen better days. The most striking change was in her eyes. The calculating gleam was gone, replaced with something that looked like genuine exhaustion. "Hi," she said quietly. "I know you probably don't want to see me. I wouldn't blame you if you slammed the door in my face. What do you want, Jessica?" She shifted the umbrella, and I could see her hands were shaking slightly. Not from cold, from nerves. "I wanted to apologize. Really apologize. Not the bullshit sorry I gave you before. And I wanted to give you something." She held up a manila envelope, slightly damp from the rain. Against my better judgment, I unlatched the chain and opened the door wider. "You have 5 minutes." Jessica stepped inside, leaving puddles on my hardwood floor. She looked around the apartment, at Maya's neat textbooks stacked on the coffee table, at the new security system panel by the door, at a framed photo of Tyler and I at last month's cybersecurity conference. "You've done well," she said, and there was no sarcasm in it. "The place looks good. Feels safer." I crossed my arms. "You said you had something for me." She handed me the envelope. Inside was a cashier's check for $3,247 and a handwritten letter on plain notebook paper. "That's the last of what I owe you," she said, with interest. "The letter, well, you can read it or throw it away. Your choice." I stared at the check. "Jessica, your restitution payments ended 6 months ago. You didn't owe me anything more." "Yeah, I did." She sat down heavily on my couch without being invited, then seemed to realize what she had done and started to get up. "Sorry, It's fine. Stay." I sat across from her, still holding the envelope. "What's this really about?" Jessica was quiet for a long moment, looking at her hands. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely higher than a whisper. "I've been going to therapy. Court-mandated at first, but I kept going after probation ended. Dr. Williams, my therapist, she's been helping me understand why I did what I did. Not excuses, just understanding." I waited. "I was broke, Sarah, really broke. Not the kind of broke where you can't afford Starbucks every day, the kind where you're stealing food from the campus store and sleeping in your car some nights because you spent rent money on trying to look like you had your shit together. This wasn't the Jessica I remembered. That Jessica never admitted weakness, never showed vulnerability. My parents cut me off sophomore year when they found out I'd been lying about my grades. I was failing out, but I couldn't bear to tell anyone. The influencer thing, the networking events, it was all fake. I was living on credit cards and lies, and when those maxed out, well, I got desperate. So you decided to steal from me. I decided to survive, which doesn't make it right. Dr. Williams helped me see that what I did to you was about more than money. It was about power and control and this fucked up sense that I deserved things I hadn't earned." I opened the letter while she was talking. It was 3 pages of neat handwriting starting with, "Dear Sarah, I know this letter can't undo what I did, but I need you to know that I understand now." "You don't have to read it now," Jessica said quickly. "But everything I couldn't say during the legal stuff, everything I was too proud or scared to admit, it's all in there." I folded the letter and set it aside. "What are you doing now?" "Working at a Target in San Antonio, living with 2 roommates in a shitty apartment, splitting everything 3 ways, no shared passwords." She gave a rueful smile. "I'm enrolled at San Antonio Community College, trying to finish my degree. Turns out when you're not spending all your energy on scams and lies, you can actually focus on school." "That's good, Jessica. Really." She looked at me with something like surprise. "You mean that?" "I do. I never wanted you to fail at life. I just wanted you to stop stealing from me." We sat in silence for a moment, rain still pattering against the windows. "Jessica, can I ask you something now?" "Sure." "How did you know? I mean, really know, not just suspect. You were so sure when you confronted me, even before Tyler helped you prove it." I thought about that night, about the moment I'd seen those 47 Disney Plus profiles and felt the certainty settle in my chest. "It was the way you looked at my accounts that first night, when I was setting up your profiles. You were memorizing everything. Passwords, security questions, payment methods. At the time, I thought you were just being careful, but looking back, you were planning." Jessica nodded slowly. "I was. I'm not proud of it, but yeah,
I walked into this apartment with a plan to use you. The sweet roommate thing, the sob story about being broke, it was all calculated. The honesty was startling. The old Jessica would never have admitted to manipulation so directly. But here's the thing, she continued. After living here for a while, I actually started to like you. You were kind to me in ways I wasn't used to. You made me coffee when I seemed stressed. You asked about my day. You treated me like a real friend. Part of me wanted to stop the whole thing, but I was in too deep by then. So why didn't you just tell me the truth? Ask for help instead of stealing from me? Jessica's laugh was bitter. Because I'd built this entire identity around being someone who had her shit together. The idea of admitting I was failing, that I needed help, it felt impossible. Easier to keep lying, keep taking, keep pretending. I understood that feeling more than I wanted to admit. How many times in my own life had I chosen the harder path because asking for help felt like admitting defeat? Jessica, can I ask you something now? Sure. Do you actually feel bad about what you did, or are you just sorry?
The whole thing, seeing how confused and betrayed you felt, that kept me up at night during the worst of it. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Dr. Williams says that's normal, that real remorse usually comes mixed with self-pity at first. But she also says the fact that I'm here, having this conversation, paying you money I don't legally owe you, that suggests the remorse is becoming genuine. I looked at the check again. $3,000 was a lot of money for someone working retail and going to community college. Jessica, are you sure you can afford this? I can afford it, she said firmly. I've been saving for 8 months, living on ramen and thrift store clothes, but saving. It was important to me that you got every penny back with interest. It's not about what you need, it's about what I owe you. Maya's key turned in the lock and she walked in shaking rain off her jacket. She took in the scene, me holding an envelope, Jessica sitting on our couch looking nervous, and raised an eyebrow. Maya, this is Jessica. Jessica, my roommate Maya. Maya's expression shifted to polite recognition. She'd heard plenty about Jessica over the past year. The famous Jessica, Maya said, hanging up her jacket. Should I be checking my account passwords? It was a joke, but Jessica flinched like she'd been slapped. Maya, I said quietly. No, it's okay, Jessica said, standing up. I deserve that. And worse. She looked at Maya directly. For what it's worth, I'm not that person anymore, but I understand if you don't believe me. Maya studied her for a moment, then nodded. We all make mistakes. Some are just more expensive than others. It was a gracious response, more gracious than Jessica probably expected. I should go, Jessica said, moving toward the door. Thank you for letting me come up, for listening. Jessica, wait. I stood up, still holding the envelope. The therapy is helping? Yeah, really helping. I'm learning to ask for help instead of taking what I need, learning to be honest about my limitations instead of pretending to be someone I'm not. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Sarah. I know I don't deserve that. But I wanted you to know that what you did, calling me out, involving the police, making me face consequences, it probably saved my life, or at least saved me from becoming someone even worse. After she left, I sat back down and read her letter. It was everything she'd said and more. A detailed accounting not just of what she'd done, but of the thought process behind it. The justification she'd made, the lies she'd told herself, the moment she'd realized she'd become someone she didn't recognize. The worst part, one section read, wasn't the arrest or the court dates or the probation. It was realizing that I'd become the kind of person who could look at genuine kindness and see it as an opportunity to exploit. You offered me friendship, and I turned it into a business opportunity. I stole your money, but I also stole something harder to replace, your ability to trust people easily. Maya read over my shoulder. Damn, she said quietly. That's actually pretty insightful. Yeah, it is. Are you gonna forgive her? I thought about it. I don't know if forgiveness is the right word, but I think I understand her now in a way I didn't before, and understanding feels more important than forgiveness right now. 2 weeks later, I ran into Tyler at our usual coffee shop. I told him about Jessica's visit and showed him the letter. How do you feel about all of it? He asked. Honestly, grateful. Not grateful that she stole from me, but grateful that I learned to stand up for myself. Grateful that I trusted my instincts instead of letting her gaslight me into thinking I was being dramatic. Tyler nodded. You've changed too, you know. When I first met you, you were apologizing for asking me to help you figure out if you were getting stolen from. Now you're running cybersecurity workshops for college students. It's true. Maya and I had started a monthly workshop called Digital Self-Defense, teaching students how to protect themselves from exactly the kind of fraud Jessica had perpetrated. We'd had over 200 attendees in the past 6 months. I guess everyone learned something, I said. Think you'll hear from her again? I don't know. Maybe. But if I do, I think I'll be okay with it. That evening, I found myself going through my old photos on my phone, deleting the ones with Jessica. Not out of anger, but out of a sense of closure. Those pictures were of a friendship that was never real, and keeping them felt like holding onto something that had never actually existed. But I kept one, a selfie we'd taken during our second week as roommates. Jessica's smile in it wasn't calculated or performative. It was genuine, caught in a moment when she'd let her guard down. I kept it because it reminded me that even in the middle of deception, there had been moments of real connection. Those moments didn't excuse what she'd done, but they were part of the story too. 6 months after Jessica's visit, I got a text from an unknown number. Sarah, this is Jessica. I graduated from community college yesterday. Dean's List. Thank you for helping me become someone worth becoming. I hope you're doing well. I stared at the message for a long time before responding. Congratulations, Jessica. I'm proud of you.
"40% of identity theft and digital fraud is committed by someone the victim knows personally: family members, romantic partners, roommates, friends." I talked about the psychology of intimate fraud, the way trust becomes a weapon, the particular vulnerability of people who pride themselves on being helpful and generous. I shared stories from our workshop participants, always anonymized, always with permission, about parents stealing their children's identities, partners emptying joint accounts, friends using shared streaming services to fund elaborate schemes. But this isn't just a story about victimization, I said, moving into the second half of the presentation. It's about the power of trusting your instincts, seeking help when something feels wrong, and turning personal experience into systemic change. I clicked to a photo of our latest workshop, packed with students, parents, and community members learning about digital self-defense. When we started these workshops, we thought we were teaching people how to protect their passwords. What we discovered is that we were really teaching people how to trust themselves. The Q&A session was lively, with questions ranging from technical implementation to legal recourse to the psychological impact of intimate betrayal. I found myself glancing toward the back of the room, but Jessica had disappeared sometime during the presentation. As the audience filed out, Tyler joined me on stage. "That was incredible, Sarah. You could see people connecting the dots, realizing they'd experienced similar situations." "Did you see?" I started to ask about Jessica, then stopped. It didn't matter why she'd been there or why she'd left. "See what?" "Nothing. Just thought I recognized someone." But as we packed up the presentation materials, a conference volunteer approached with an envelope. Someone asked me to give this to you. A woman with dark hair. She said it was important, but not urgent. My name was written on the front in Jessica's familiar handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of paper and a business card. The letter was brief. Sarah, I heard about your talk through the cybersecurity community and wanted to attend. I hope that's okay. Your work is helping people, and I wanted you to know that what you're doing matters. Thank you for turning something painful into something that protects others. Jay. The business card read, Jessica Martinez, digital ethics consultant, specializing in fraud prevention and recovery support. Tyler looked over my shoulder as I studied the card. She's working in fraud prevention now? Apparently. I turned the card over. On the back, she'd written, 6 months clean from any questionable digital practices. Still in therapy, still grateful for the lesson in consequences. What do you think? Tyler asked. I think people are complicated, I said, tucking the card into my laptop bag. And I think she's probably good at this work. She understands the mindset better than most people would. 3 months later, I was reviewing applications for our expanded digital security program when I saw a familiar name. Jessica had applied to be a volunteer workshop facilitator, specializing in sessions for people recovering from perpetrating digital fraud. Her application essay was thoughtful and detailed, outlining her qualifications, which included both her criminal background and her recovery work, and her vision for helping people who'd made the kinds of mistakes that hurt the people they cared about. She wrote, I know what it feels like to justify unethical behavior. I know the thought patterns that lead someone to see kindness as weakness to be exploited, rather than strength to be valued. I also know what it takes to change those patterns and rebuild trust with yourself and others. I believe this combination of experience gives me something valuable to offer people who are where I used to be. Maya and I discussed the application over coffee, weighing the potential benefits against the risks. She'd be working with people who've committed fraud, not potential victims, Maya pointed out, and we'd be supervising closely. If she's really changed, she could be incredibly effective, I finished. Someone who's been there, done that, and found a way back. In the end, we decided to bring Jessica on for a trial period. Her first workshop was with a group of college students who'd been caught in various digital fraud schemes, selling fake IDs, running dating app catfishing operations, reselling stolen streaming accounts. I observed from the back of the room as Jessica shared her story with unflinching honesty. She didn't minimize what she'd done or make excuses. She talked about the thought processes that led her to justify theft, the way she'd rationalize hurting someone who'd been kind to her, and the long road back to being someone she could respect. One student, a young man who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, raised his hand. But if you're broke and someone's got money, isn't it kind of fair game? I mean, they can afford it. Jessica's response was immediate and gentle. That's exactly what I told myself, she said. Sarah had a good job, nice apartment, multiple streaming subscriptions. I convinced myself that taking from her wasn't really hurting her. But that's not how it works. It wasn't just her money I was stealing. It was her trust, her sense of safety in her own home, her ability to believe people when they said they cared about her. The young man looked uncomfortable but didn't argue. The thing is, Jessica continued, when you justify taking from people because they have more, you're not really making a moral choice. You're making a selfish choice and dressing it up as righteousness. Real moral choices involve sacrifice, not just taking what you want. After the workshop, as students filtered out, the same young man approached Jessica. They talked quietly for a few minutes, and I saw him writing down her contact information before he left. How was that? Jessica asked me as we cleaned up. Good, I said, and meant it. Really good. You reached him. She nodded, looking tired but satisfied. It's weird being on this side of the conversation, but it feels right. Like maybe all the shit I went through wasn't completely pointless if I can use it to help someone else avoid making the same mistakes. 6 months later, Jessica had become one of our most requested workshop facilitators. She developed specialized curricula for different types of digital fraud, and her sessions consistently received the highest ratings from participants. More importantly, she'd maintained her commitment to transparency and accountability. She was open about her past, careful to maintain appropriate boundaries, and rigorous about avoiding any situation that might create conflicts of interest. The trust has to be earned every single day, she told me during one of our monthly check-ins.
I can't just decide I'm different now and expect everyone else to believe it. I have to prove it, consistently over time. It was a mature perspective, one that showed genuine growth from the person who'd once justified stealing from me because I could afford it. As I write this, it's been 3 years since Jessica moved out of my apartment, 2 years since her apology visit, and 18 months since she joined our digital security program. She's helped dozens of people navigate the aftermath of committing or surviving digital fraud, and her work has become an integral part of our mission. I still don't share streaming passwords casually. I still change my passwords regularly and screen potential roommates carefully. But I've also learned that healing from betrayal doesn't require holding on to anger forever. Sometimes it means creating space for people to become better than they were, while maintaining the boundaries that keep you safe. Jessica and I aren't friends exactly, but we've become something more complex. Colleagues who share a commitment to helping others avoid the mistakes that brought us together in the first place. It's not the relationship either of us imagined when she first knocked on my door as a potential roommate, but it's honest in a way that relationship never was. And sometimes, honest is more valuable than perfect. Up next, we have 2 incredible stories that are waiting for you. Just click the image you want to watch, and it will take you there. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. It would mean a lot.